The morning of May 6th, 2023, brought with it an electricity that seemed to pulse through every corner of London. As the first rays of sunlight painted the ancient stones of Westminster Abbey in golden hues, the city awakened to witness something that hadn't occurred in over 70 years, the coronation of a new British monarch. King Charles III would finally receive the crown that had been destined for him since birth, but this day would prove to be about much more than just one man's ascension to the throne. Behind the grand gates of Windsor Castle, another kind of preparation was taking place. Prince William, the heir apparent, stood before an ornate mirror in his private chambers, adjusting the ceremonial regalia that marked his position as the future king. The weight of the moment pressed upon his shoulders, not just the physical weight of the elaborate uniform with its golden braids and gleaming medals, but the metaphorical weight of centuries of tradition and the knowledge that he was witnessing his father's moment of triumph after decades of waiting. Catherine, Princess of Wales, moved through their private apartments with the grace that had made her beloved by millions around the world. Her morning routine, usually a private affair shared only with her family, had taken on new significance today. Every choice, from the shade of her lipstick to the angle of her headpiece, would be scrutinized by observers across the globe. Yet despite the magnitude of the occasion, she maintained the composure that had become her trademark, ensuring that her children felt the excitement of the day rather than its pressure. 9-year-old Prince George, second in line to the throne, experienced a mixture of emotions that morning. The young prince had been chosen to serve as one of his grandfather's pages of honor, a role that would place him at the very center of the ancient ceremony. As his valet helped him into his crimson velvet uniform with its gold braiding and white silk stockings, George felt the weight of history settling around him like an invisible cloak. His parents had spent weeks preparing him for this moment, explaining the significance of each ritual while ensuring he understood the honor of his participation. Princess Charlotte, now 8 years old and already showing signs of the confidence that seemed to run in the Windsor bloodline, approached the day with a mixture of excitement and careful attention to protocol. Her navy blue dress, specially designed for the occasion, made her feel grown-up and important. She had practiced her curtsy dozens of times in the weeks leading up to the coronation, determined to execute it perfectly when the moment came. Her natural poise, inherited from both parents, would serve her well in the hours ahead. 5-year-old Prince Louis, the youngest of the Wales children, brought his characteristic energy to the morning's preparations. His parents knew that keeping the spirited young prince focused during the lengthy ceremony would be one of their greatest challenges of the day. However, they also recognized that his natural charm and spontaneous reactions had already endeared him to the public during previous royal events. Today would be no different, though they hoped his enthusiasm would manifest in ways that honored the solemnity of the occasion. The breakfast table at Adelaide Cottage that morning held an atmosphere unlike any other day in their family life. William and Catherine had made a deliberate choice to maintain some normalcy for their children, serving their usual morning meal despite the extraordinary day ahead. The conversation flowed between reminders about protocol and gentle reassurances about the day's proceedings. Catherine, ever the devoted mother, used this quiet family time to gauge her children's emotional state and address any last-minute concerns. As they prepared to depart for Westminster Abbey, the family gathered in their entrance hall for a moment that would be preserved in royal history. The official photographer captured them in their ceremonial attire, but, more importantly, this moment represented the passing of one generation to the next. William, standing beside his wife and children, embodied the future of the monarchy, a future that balanced ancient tradition with modern sensibilities. The journey from Windsor to Westminster took them through streets lined with thousands of well-wishers who had traveled from across the Commonwealth and beyond. As their convoy moved slowly through the crowds, the children pressed their faces to the windows, marveling at the sea of Union Jack flags and the elaborate decorations that adorned every lamp post and building facade. The enthusiasm of the crowds was infectious, and even young Louis seemed to understand that this was no ordinary day. Catherine found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this moment. From a middle-class upbringing in Berkshire to becoming one of the most photographed women in the world, her path had been extraordinary by any measure. Yet as she looked at her children, dressed in their finest attire and preparing to play their parts in one of the oldest ceremonies in the Western world, she felt most proud of the family they had created together. The security preparations for the day had been months in the planning, with every possible scenario considered and contingency plans developed. As the Wales family's convoy approached Westminster Abbey, they could see the crowd stretching back as far as the eye could see. Street barriers held back enthusiastic royal watchers, many of whom had camped overnight to secure the best viewing positions. The atmosphere was one of celebration, with strangers sharing food and stories as they waited for glimpses of the royal family. Inside their vehicle, William took a moment to speak privately with each of his children. To George, he offered words of encouragement about his role as page of honor, reminding him that he was representing not just their family, but the entire nation. To Charlotte, he praised her preparation and reminded her how proud he was of her dedication to learning the protocols. To Louis, he spoke gently about the importance of good behavior while acknowledging that the day would be long and sometimes difficult for a young child. As Westminster Abbey came into view, its Gothic spires reaching toward the cloudy London sky, the magnitude of the occasion became even more apparent. This ancient building had witnessed the coronations of monarchs for nearly 1,000 years, and today it would add another chapter to its illustrious history. The Abbey's bells had been ringing since early morning, their joyous sound carrying across the Thames and announcing to all of London that this was indeed a day of celebration. The timing of their arrival had been planned with military precision. As senior members of the royal family, they would enter after many of the guests, but before the king himself. This gave them the opportunity to settle into their seats and ensure the children were comfortable before the most solemn moments of the ceremony began. Catherine, drawing on years of experience at royal events, had prepared small comfort items for the children, discreet snacks, and quiet activities that could help them through the longer portions of the service. The steps of Westminster Abbey, worn smooth by centuries of historic footsteps, would soon bear the weight of another generation of royals. As their car drew to a stop, William and Catherine exchanged a look that spoke volumes about their shared understanding of the moment. They were not just attending their father and father-in-law's coronation. They were stepping forward into their own destiny as the future of the British monarchy. The crowd's cheers grew louder as they caught sight of the Wales family's arrival. Photographers positioned at strategic points captured every angle of their emergence from the official vehicle. Catherine's elegant ensemble, chosen to complement the ceremonial nature of the day while maintaining her own distinctive style, drew immediate admiration from fashion observers and royal watchers alike. Her children, impeccably dressed and demonstrating the poise that had been carefully instilled in them, represented the new generation that would carry the monarchy into the future. As they approached the Abbey's great doors, the sound of the organ could be heard even outside the ancient walls. The music, carefully selected to honor both tradition and the personal preferences of the new king, created an atmosphere of reverence that seemed to quiet even the most enthusiastic members of the crowd. This was the moment when celebration began to transform into ceremony, when the informal gatherings of the morning gave way to the ancient rituals that would define the day. The last few steps before entering Westminster Abbey represented more than just a physical transition from outdoors to indoors. For the Wales family, these steps marked their entry into a moment that would be remembered and studied by historians for generations to come. They were no longer simply a family preparing for an important day. They had become participants in one of the oldest and most significant ceremonies in British constitutional history. The moment the Wales family crossed the threshold of Westminster Abbey, they entered a world transformed. The ancient Gothic cathedral, with its soaring arches and intricate stone carvings, had been meticulously prepared for this singular event. Thousands of flowers, carefully chosen to represent the nations of the Commonwealth, created a tapestry of color and fragrance that complemented the building's natural majesty. The Abbey's famous nave, which had witnessed centuries of royal ceremonies, marriages, and funerals, now served as the stage for the most significant constitutional event in over 7 decades. Catherine instinctively placed a gentle hand on Louis's shoulder as they made their way down the aisle, a maternal gesture that spoke to her understanding of how overwhelming this moment might be for her youngest child. The Abbey was filled with an extraordinary gathering of dignitaries, world leaders, and representatives from every corner of the globe. Heads of state who rarely occupied the same space sat shoulder to shoulder, their differences set aside in honor of this historic occasion. The sight was both humbling and inspiring, a testament to the enduring influence of the British monarchy on the world stage. Prince George, walking with the measured steps he had practiced countless times, embodied the bridge between the monarchy's past and its future. His crimson velvet page of honor uniform, identical to those worn by boys who had served previous monarchs over the centuries, connected him to a chain of service that stretched back through British history. As he took his place among the other pages, his composure impressed even the most experienced royal observers. The young prince had clearly taken his parents' guidance to heart, understanding that his behavior today would reflect not only on his family, but on the institution they represented. The seating arrangements within the abbey had been planned with diplomatic precision, ensuring that protocol was observed while creating the most meaningful visual impact. The Wales family's position in the front rows allowed them an unobstructed view of the altar where the coronation would take place, while also positioning them prominently for the television cameras that would broadcast the event to an estimated global audience of 2 billion viewers. Catherine, seated between William and Charlotte, served as a calming presence for both her husband and her daughter, her serene demeanor masking any nervousness she might have felt. Princess Charlotte, demonstrating the poise that had become her hallmark at public events, observed everything around her with keen interest. Her preparation for this day had included extensive conversations with her parents about the historical significance of each element of the ceremony. Now, surrounded by the tangible evidence of that history, she seemed to grasp the magnitude of the moment in a way that impressed the adults around her. Her navy dress, chosen to be both age-appropriate and ceremonially appropriate, struck the perfect balance between honoring tradition and allowing her personality to shine through. The abbey's famous choir, positioned in their traditional location within the ornate choir stalls, began the musical program that would accompany the ceremony. Their voices, trained to perfection and carrying the weight of centuries of choral tradition, filled the sacred space with harmonies that seemed to transport everyone present back through time. The music, carefully selected to reflect both the solemnity of the occasion and the personal preferences of the new king, created an atmosphere that was both reverent and celebratory. As the congregation settled into their seats, the reality of the day's significance became increasingly apparent. This was not merely a religious service or a state ceremony. It was the moment when constitutional monarchy renewed itself for another generation. William, acutely aware of his position as heir apparent, felt the weight of this responsibility settling around him. His own coronation, though still years in the future, suddenly felt more real and immediate as he watched the preparations for his father's ceremony unfold. The arrival of senior members of the royal family created waves of anticipation throughout the abbey. Each entrance was carefully choreographed, with timing calculated to the minute to ensure the ceremony proceeded according to the ancient protocols that governed such events. The Princess Royal, known for her unwavering dedication to duty, took her place with characteristic precision. The Duke of Edinburgh, newest member of the royal family through marriage, demonstrated the dignity that had made him a valued addition to the institution. Catherine found herself marveling at the diversity of the congregation. Representatives from every faith tradition, political leaders from across the spectrum, and cultural figures who had shaped modern British society sat together in a display of unity that transcended their usual divisions. The Abbey had become, for these few hours, a microcosm of the best aspirations of the Commonwealth realm, a gathering where differences were celebrated rather than divisive. The ancient stones of Westminster Abbey seemed to absorb and reflect the energy of the moment. Every surface bore the marks of history, memorials to poets and scientists, monarchs and commoners who had shaped British civilization. The Poets' Corner, where literary giants found their eternal rest, looked down upon this living chapter of the nation's story. The tomb of Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen who had defined an age, served as a reminder of the monarchy's ability to adapt and endure through centuries of change. Young Louis, despite his parents' careful preparation, began to show signs of the restlessness that might be expected from any 5-year-old required to sit still for an extended period. Catherine, drawing upon her experience as both a mother and a public figure, managed his energy with discreet gestures and quiet words that demonstrated her skill at balancing maternal care with public responsibility. Her ability to maintain the dignity required by the occasion while ensuring her child's comfort impressed observers and reinforced her reputation as a devoted mother. The lighting within the abbey had been carefully arranged to ensure that every aspect of the ceremony would be visible both to those present and to the television audience around the world. Ancient candles provided atmospheric illumination, while modern technology ensured that no detail would be lost in shadow. The interplay between old and new, between tradition and innovation, became a theme that would define the entire ceremony. As the moment of the king's arrival approached, a hush fell over the congregation that seemed to deepen the abbey's natural acoustics. The great doors at the western end of the building stood ready to admit the sovereign, and, with him, the formal beginning of a ceremony that would transform him from heir to monarch. William felt his heart rate increase slightly, knowing that he was about to witness his father achieve the destiny that had defined his entire life. The abbey's bells, which had been ringing intermittently throughout the morning, suddenly fell silent. This moment of quiet, after hours of joyous sound, created a sense of anticipation that was almost palpable. Even the youngest members of the congregation seemed to understand that something momentous was about to begin. Charlotte reached over to take her mother's hand, a gesture that was captured by photographers and would later be seen as emblematic of the family's unity during this historic moment. The procession route through the abbey had been walked countless times during rehearsals, but now, with the building filled to capacity and the weight of history pressing down upon everyone present, each step would carry unprecedented significance. The Wales family, seated in their positions of honor, prepared to witness not just a ceremony, but a transformation. The moment when the constitutional monarchy renewed itself for another generation and their own roles within that institution became even more clearly defined. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the abbey's nave, announcing the imminent arrival of the sovereign. After 70 years of waiting, King Charles III was about to receive the crown that had been his birthright, and his eldest son was about to witness the ceremony that would preview his own future. The moment had arrived for the ancient rituals to begin, and, with them, a new chapter in the long history of the British crown. The moment King Charles III entered Westminster Abbey, the atmosphere transformed from anticipation to reverence. The sovereign, dressed in the crimson robe of state with its 18-foot train carried by his pages of honor, moved with the measured dignity that the occasion demanded. Prince George, positioned among the pages, demonstrated remarkable composure as he helped manage the ceremonial robe, his young hands steady despite the magnitude of the moment. The sight of grandfather and grandson participating together in this ancient ritual created a powerful symbol of continuity that resonated throughout the abbey. Catherine watched with maternal pride as George fulfilled his ceremonial duties with precision and grace. The weeks of preparation had clearly served him well, and his natural poise shone through as he navigated the complex choreography of the procession. She caught William's eye and saw her own emotions reflected there, pride in their son's performance, awe at the historic significance of the moment, and a deep appreciation for being present at such a pivotal event in their family's history and the nation's constitutional life. The ancient words of the coronation service, unchanged for centuries, began to fill the abbey's sacred space. The Archbishop of Canterbury, representing the established church, led the proceedings with the gravity befitting the oldest continuing ceremony in European history. Each prayer and proclamation carried the weight of tradition while acknowledging the contemporary world that the new monarch would lead. The service represented not just a religious ceremony, but a constitutional act that would legally confirm the transition of the crown. Princess Charlotte, seated beside her mother, followed every word and gesture with careful attention. Her preparation for the day had included studying the various elements of the coronation service, and now she could see those lessons coming to life before her eyes. The young princess demonstrated the same careful attention to protocol that had characterized her public appearances since early childhood, her posture perfect, and her expression appropriately solemn for the sacred nature of the ceremony. The presentation of the ancient regalia created some of the ceremony's most visually striking moments. Each crown, scepter, and orb carried centuries of history and constitutional significance. The St. Edward's crown, crafted for the coronation of Charles II in 1661, would soon rest upon the head of Charles III, creating a direct physical link to every monarch who had worn it before. William, as heir apparent, watched these moments with particular intensity, knowing that he would one day experience these same rituals himself. The Abbey's congregation, representing the full spectrum of British and Commonwealth society, participated in the responses with voices that created a powerful chorus of unity. Prime ministers and presidents, religious leaders from multiple faiths, and representatives of charitable organizations founded their voices together in acknowledgement of the new reign. The democratic nature of modern Britain was reflected in the diversity of those present, while the ancient ceremony honored the historical foundations upon which contemporary society was built. Young Louis, despite his parents' careful management, began to exhibit some of the restlessness that might be expected from any child his age during such a lengthy ceremony. His fidgeting and occasional whispered comments to his mother provided moments of human warmth that contrasted beautifully with the ceremony's formal nature. Catherine's skillful handling of her youngest son's energy demonstrated her ability to balance maternal responsibilities with the demands of public representation, earning admiration from observers and parents around the world. The music throughout the ceremony created an emotional landscape that enhanced each ritual moment. The Abbey's world-renowned choir, supported by orchestra and organ, performed pieces that ranged from ancient plainchant to newly commissioned works created specifically for this coronation. The musical selections reflected King Charles's personal interests while honoring the traditional elements that connected this ceremony to coronations stretching back over a millennium. The anointing of the sovereign, conducted behind a specially constructed screen to preserve the sacred privacy of this most holy moment, represented the ceremony's spiritual heart. While the congregation could not see this ancient ritual, they could feel its significance in the profound quiet that descended upon the abbey. William understood that this moment transformed his father from heir to anointed monarch, a change that was both spiritual and constitutional in nature. When the screen was removed and the newly anointed king appeared in the golden supertunica, the visual impact was extraordinary. The garment, with its symbolic decorations and rich fabric, transformed the familiar figure of the former Prince of Wales into something that seemed to embody the very essence of monarchy. The congregation's response was immediate and powerful, a recognition that they were witnessing not just ceremonial theater, but genuine constitutional transformation. The investiture with the various items of regalia proceeded with ancient precision. Each object, the spurs representing knighthood, the sword symbolizing justice, the orb representing divine authority over the earthly realm, carried layers of meaning that connected the new monarch to centuries of royal tradition. Catherine found herself moved by the deliberate pace of these rituals, which allowed each symbolic moment to resonate fully before proceeding to the next. Princess Charlotte's education in royal protocol proved invaluable as she recognized the significance of each ceremonial element. Her parents had been careful to explain the historical and constitutional importance of the coronation without overwhelming her with information beyond her years. Now, watching the ceremony unfold, she demonstrated an understanding of its significance that impressed even experienced royal observers. The moment of crowning itself created an electric atmosphere within the abbey. As the archbishop lifted St. Edward's crown and placed it upon the sovereign's head, the congregation erupted in the traditional cry of "God Save the King." The sound, amplified by the abbey's acoustics and the emotion of the moment, seemed to shake the very foundations of the ancient building. William felt a surge of pride and emotion as he watched his father achieve the destiny that had defined his entire life. The homage that followed the crowning provided some of the ceremony's most personally meaningful moments. William's own homage to his father, the first to be offered by the heir apparent, carried special significance as it represented not just personal devotion, but constitutional recognition of the new reign. His words, carefully chosen and delivered with obvious sincerity, moved many in the congregation to tears and reinforced the strong family bonds that had sustained the royal family through various challenges. The participation of representatives from different faith communities in various portions of the ceremony reflected the modern monarchy's recognition of Britain's religious diversity. While maintaining its constitutional connection to the Church of England, the coronation acknowledged the multicultural nature of contemporary British society. This balance between tradition and inclusion characterized many aspects of the ceremony and demonstrated the monarchy's evolution to meet changing social expectations. As the ceremony progressed toward its conclusion, the energy within the abbey shifted from solemn reverence toward joyous celebration. The recessional music, chosen to inspire and uplift, provided the perfect soundtrack for the newly crowned king's departure. The Wales family, rising to leave their seats, had witnessed history being made and had played their own important roles in ensuring its success. The sight of Prince George, having completed his duties as page of honor with distinction, rejoining his family created a moment of particular warmth. His successful participation in such an important ceremony marked a significant milestone in his development as a future monarch, while his obvious relief at completing his responsibilities reminded everyone present that he remained, above all else, a young boy who had risen admirably to meet extraordinary expectations. As they prepared to process out of the abbey, The Wales family represented the future of the institution they had just helped to renew. The ceremony had not only crowned a new king, but had also showcased the next generation of royals who would carry the monarchy forward into the decades to come. As the newly crowned King Charles III and Queen Camilla emerged from Westminster Abbey, the London sky seemed to brighten despite the threatening clouds that had hung over the city all morning. The sight of the sovereign, now wearing the lighter imperial state crown and the purple robe of his state, created a visual spectacle that would be remembered for generations. Behind them, the Wales family followed in the carefully choreographed procession, their faces reflecting the joy and relief of a ceremony completed successfully. Prince George, having fulfilled his role as page of honor with remarkable composure, walked alongside his siblings with a confidence that belied his young age. The experience of participating so directly in his grandfather's coronation had clearly affected him profoundly. Observers noted how he seemed to carry himself differently now, as if the weight of his future responsibilities had settled more concretely upon his shoulders. His parents watched with obvious pride as he navigated the transition from ceremonial participant back to beloved son and brother. The gold state coach, waiting outside the abbey with its elaborate decorations and 8 Windsor gray horses, represented the pinnacle of royal pageantry. Built in 1762, the coach had carried sovereigns to and from their coronations for over 2 centuries, making it one of the most historically significant vehicles in the world. As the newly crowned monarchs settled into its ornate interior, they became part of a tradition that connected them directly to every crowned sovereign since George III. Catherine, elegant in her ceremonial dress and headpiece, helped guide her children toward their own transportation for the procession back to Buckingham Palace. The sight of the Princess of Wales managing both the formal requirements of the occasion and the practical needs of her family demonstrated the careful balance she had learned to maintain throughout her royal career. Her natural warmth and maternal instincts shone through even the most formal moments, endearing her further to the crowds lining the processional route. The streets of London had been transformed into a corridor of celebration unlike anything seen in the capital for decades. Union Jack flags hung from every available surface, creating a sea of red, white, and blue that stretched as far as the eye could see. Spectators, many of whom had waited for hours to secure prime viewing positions, erupted in cheers as the royal procession began its stately journey through the heart of historic London. Princess Charlotte, traveling in one of the state vehicles with her family, pressed her face to the window to wave at the enthusiastic crowds. Her natural charm and obvious enjoyment of the public attention created wonderful moments of connection between the royal family and the people celebrating in the streets. The young princess seemed to understand intuitively how to balance the dignity required by the occasion with the warmth that made the monarchy accessible to ordinary citizens. The processional route, carefully planned to maximize public viewing opportunities while ensuring security, took the royal cavalcade through some of London's most historic areas. Parliament Square, Whitehall, and the Mall had been decorated with elaborate displays that honored both British tradition and Commonwealth diversity. Each section of the route offered spectators different perspectives on the procession, ensuring that everyone present could participate fully in this historic celebration. Young Louis, perhaps overwhelmed by the morning's ceremonies and the excitement of the crowds, displayed some of the spirited behavior that had made him a favorite with royal watchers during previous public appearances. His animated reactions to the cheering crowds and his obvious delight in waving to well-wishers created moments of pure joy that were captured by photographers and immediately shared around the world. Catherine's gentle management of his enthusiasm demonstrated her skill at allowing her children's personalities to shine while maintaining appropriate royal dignity. The international media coverage of the procession was unprecedented in scope and scale. Television networks from every continent provided live commentary in dozens of languages, ensuring that the celebration reached every corner of the globe. The sight of the Wales family, representing the future of the monarchy, generated particular interest among international observers who saw in them a perfect embodiment of modern royal service combined with traditional values. The crowds lining the processional route represented an extraordinary cross-section of British and Commonwealth society. Families who had traveled from distant parts of the realm stood alongside London residents, tourists from around the world, and representatives of organizations connected to the royal family's charitable work. The atmosphere was one of genuine celebration, with strangers sharing food, stories, and excitement as they witnessed history being made before their eyes. As the procession moved along the mall toward Buckingham Palace, the energy of the crowds reached fever pitch. This famous avenue, lined with plane trees and leading directly to the palace gates, had hosted countless royal celebrations throughout its history. Today, it served as the final stage for a journey that had begun centuries ago with the establishment of the constitutional monarchy and was now being renewed for another generation. The sight of Buckingham Palace, decorated with elaborate banners and surrounded by the largest crowds in the palace's modern history, provided a fitting climax to the day's celebrations. The building, which had served as the monarch's London residence for nearly 2 centuries, stood ready to welcome its newly crowned sovereign home. The palace balcony, from which the royal family would soon appear to acknowledge the crowds, had been the stage for some of the most memorable moments in royal history. William, watching the crowds from his position in the procession, felt a profound sense of connection to the people celebrating in the streets. This demonstration of popular support for the monarchy, freely given and enthusiastically expressed, validated the institution's continued relevance in contemporary British society. The heir apparent understood that he was witnessing not just celebration of his father's coronation, but affirmation of the monarchy's enduring role in national life. The security arrangements for the procession, while invisible to most spectators, represented months of careful planning and coordination between multiple agencies. The crowd's enthusiasm was matched by the professionalism of those responsible for ensuring everyone's safety, creating an environment where celebration could flourish without anxiety. The balance between accessibility and security demonstrated the evolution of royal protocol to meet modern challenges while preserving traditional elements. As the Gold State coach approached the palace gates, the crowd surged forward in hopes of catching final glimpses of the newly crowned sovereigns. The sight of King Charles III and Queen Camilla acknowledging the cheers from their ornate carriage created a moment of pure theater that seemed to transport everyone present back to earlier ages, when such pageantry was the primary means of royal communication with the people. The Wales family's arrival at Buckingham Palace marked not just the end of the processional journey, but the beginning of the next phase of the day's celebrations. As they disembarked from their vehicles in the palace courtyard, surrounded by the sounds of celebration from beyond the gates, they prepared for the balcony appearance that would provide the day's crowning moment. The opportunity to acknowledge the crowds and complete the circle of celebration that had begun hours earlier in Westminster Abbey. The transition from the formal ceremony in the Abbey to the public celebration on the streets of London had demonstrated the monarchy's unique ability to combine ancient tradition with contemporary accessibility. The Wales family, having played their parts in both aspects of the day's events, now prepared for the final act that would cement this coronation day in the memories of all who witnessed it. The famous balcony of Buckingham Palace had witnessed some of the most iconic moments in modern British history. Victory in World War II, royal weddings, jubilee celebrations, and moments of national triumph had all been marked by appearances on this symbolic platform overlooking the mall. Now, as the Wales family prepared to join the newly crowned king and queen for the traditional balcony appearance, they were about to create another chapter in this remarkable legacy. Inside the palace, the family gathered in the center room, the elegant space that served as the staging area for balcony appearances. The room, with its tall windows overlooking the gardens and ornate furnishings reflecting centuries of royal taste, provided a moment of calm before the public celebration that awaited them outside. Catherine took this opportunity to check on her children's appearance and emotional state, ensuring that they were ready for what would likely be the most photographed moment of their young lives. Prince George, still wearing his Page of Honor uniform, stood with new confidence that spoke to how the day's experiences had affected him. The successful completion of his ceremonial duties had clearly been a transformative experience, marking his transition from child to active participant in royal history. His parents could see in his posture and demeanor that he understood the significance of what he had accomplished and was ready to face the crowds with appropriate dignity. Princess Charlotte, ever attuned to the protocols and expectations of royal life, used these final moments of preparation to mentally rehearse the balcony appearance. Her natural poise, evident from her earliest public appearances, would serve her well as she stepped onto the most famous balcony in the world. The young princess seemed to understand intuitively that this moment would be preserved in history books and photo albums for generations to come. Young Louis, despite the long day and his earlier displays of spirited energy, appeared to sense the special nature of what was about to happen. His parents had learned to channel his natural enthusiasm in positive directions, and now they prepared him for the excitement of seeing the vast crowd gathered below the balcony. The youngest Wales child's genuine reactions had consistently delighted royal watchers, and today promised to be no exception. The sound from outside was extraordinary, a continuous roar of celebration that seemed to shake the very foundations of the palace. An estimated 100,000 people had gathered on the Mall and in St. James's Park, creating one of the largest crowds in the palace's modern history. Their enthusiasm, building throughout the day and reaching crescendo as news of the successful coronation spread, created an atmosphere of pure joy that was palpable even inside the palace walls. King Charles III, now fully invested with all the regalia and authority of his new position, took a moment to speak privately with his eldest son before the balcony appearance. This conversation, witnessed only by close family members, represented the passing of one generation's experience to the next. The newly crowned sovereign shared reflections on the day's significance while acknowledging the role that William and his family would play in the monarchy's future. The moment of stepping onto the balcony created an instant transformation in the atmosphere below. The crowd's reaction was immediate and overwhelming, a wall of sound that seemed to rise from the very streets of London. The sight of the newly crowned monarchs, flanked by the Wales family in their ceremonial attire, provided the visual confirmation of successful transition that the gathered throngs had been waiting to see. Catherine, standing beside William on the historic balcony, felt the full weight of the moment. The view from this elevated position revealed the true scope of the celebration. Thousands upon thousands of faces looking up at them with joy and expectation, flags waving in every direction, and the iconic vista of the Mall stretching toward Trafalgar Square filled with celebrating citizens. She understood that she was not just observing history, but actively participating in its creation. The traditional flypast by the Royal Air Force provided the day's most spectacular visual climax. The sight of historic aircraft alongside the latest military technology, all flying in perfect formation over Buckingham Palace, created a bridge between the monarchy's past and its future. The children's obvious delight as they watched the aircraft pass overhead provided moments of pure joy that reminded everyone present that this was, above all, a family celebration as well as a state occasion. Prince George's reaction to the flypast demonstrated his growing understanding of the military traditions associated with the monarchy. His obvious fascination with the aircraft and his careful attention to the formal protocols of the balcony appearance showed how effectively his parents had prepared him for his role as future monarch. The sight of the young prince standing confidently beside his grandfather, the king, created a powerful image of generational continuity. Princess Charlotte's natural charm shone through as she waved to the crowds with perfectly judged enthusiasm. Her preparation for royal life had clearly included careful instruction and public engagement, and now she demonstrated her ability to connect with the crowd while maintaining the dignity expected of her position. The young princess's balance of warmth and protocol impressed even experienced royal observers. Young Louis provided some of the day's most endearing moments with his spontaneous reactions to the crowds and the flypast. His uninhibited enthusiasm and genuine delight created images that would be treasured by royal watchers around the world. Catherine's gentle guidance of her youngest son's energy showed her skill at allowing his personality to shine while ensuring appropriate behavior for the historic occasion. The balcony appearance lasted just long enough to satisfy the crowd's desire to see their newly crowned sovereigns while respecting the family's need for privacy after an extraordinarily demanding day. As they prepared to withdraw from public view, each member of the Wales family took a moment to wave farewell to the celebrating throngs, creating final images that would define the visual memory of this historic coronation. The retreat from the balcony marked not just the end of the day's public celebrations, but the beginning of a new era in British constitutional history. King Charles III had been successfully crowned with the full support and participation of his family and the enthusiastic approval of his subjects. The Wales family had played crucial roles in ensuring the day's success, while demonstrating their readiness for the increased responsibilities that would define their future roles. Inside the palace, away from the cameras and the crowds, the family gathered for private celebration and reflection on the day's achievements. Prince George's successful performance as Page of Honor had marked an important milestone in his preparation for eventual kingship. Princess Charlotte had demonstrated grace and poise beyond her years. Young Louis had charmed observers while learning important lessons about royal responsibility. The coronation of King Charles III had achieved something remarkable. It had successfully balanced ancient tradition with modern accessibility, creating a ceremony that honored the monarchy's historical significance while demonstrating its continued relevance to contemporary British society. The Wales family's participation had been central to this success, showing how the institution could evolve while maintaining its essential character. As evening approached, and London began to settle into a more normal rhythm, the impact of the day's events continued to resonate. The images of the ceremony, the procession, and especially the balcony appearance would be studied and celebrated for generations to come. The Wales family had not just participated in history, they had helped to shape it in ways that would influence the monarchy's development for decades ahead. The coronation had demonstrated conclusively that the British monarchy retained the ability to inspire and unite people across all divisions of politics, class, and background. The enthusiastic participation of the crowds, the global media attention, and the successful integration of tradition with innovation all pointed to an institution that remained vital and relevant in the modern world. For Prince William, Catherine, and their children, the coronation had been both a culmination of years of preparation and a preview of their own future roles. They had risen to meet the challenges of this extraordinary day with grace, dignity, and obvious devotion to the institution they served. The success of King Charles III's coronation had been enhanced immeasurably by their participation, ensuring that the monarchy's future remained in capable and beloved hands.